Welcome to the Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup, being brought to you by Nebraska soybean farmers and their checkoff. I'm Susan Littlefield. Well, during today's report, we're going to break down all the thoughts and feels of what happened in this WASDE report and what does this mean for us going forward. Do we see any changes that are happening in the markets? We'll find out more details. So stick around. More is coming up after this.
Meet the champions of innovation in the heart of Nebraska. They're not just farmers, and they nurture more than just crops, pushing boundaries and turning challenges into opportunities. They trade knowledge and know-how, and their dedication doesn't end at harvest. It's in your every bite and every drive. The future of food, fuel, and fiber, and the future of Nebraska starts right here.
Welcome back once again as we take a look at what's happened in this market trade. We know Friday brought us a WASDE report. Bringing in the conversation is Kyle Bumsted over at Allendale and David Ericson with Ag Optimus. And first of all, David, welcome. It's the first time you've been on this program with us, and we are glad to have you join us. So we're going to put you in the hot seat first. Kind of give me, before we dive into the WASDE, I do like to kind of look at what the overall thoughts of the week's market trade was. So give me your one bullet point, whether it's grain or livestock, that caught your attention in the trade this week.
I guess my biggest thing is that we had a little pressure on these grains here, and the way that we kind of closed some things out, we tripped below some major moving averages. So that tells me that there might be a little more pressure coming. I kind of was in the camp coming into the week that I thought we would. We had gotten kind of through that harvest pressure originally, kind of through that gut slot of harvest, but there might be a little more pressure on this market as we move forward.
All right, and let's switch gears, and I'll shrink you back out of the picture here for a second. Kyle, for you, what's been the thing that kind of caught your attention this week?
Same thing. Looking at the soybean complex there, I think that this is the second week lower in the complex on the weekly chart. So this will be the second week lower against the uptrend that we have in place. So I'd be looking for maybe a little bit more down next week before we potentially start to uncover those non-commercial buyers again. And most of this rally has been non-commercial led. So we do need to kind of keep in mind that the funds or the algos, whatever you want to call them, they were the ones that bought this thing on the way up. The commercials, there hasn't been a lot of commercial I guess buying in the spreads. The spreads haven't changed that much, but we have been able to make some sales here on these decent pullbacks here recently in soybeans.
All right, we did have a WASDE report that came out on Friday morning. David, what was your takeaway on those numbers?
Yeah, I didn't think that I thought the numbers basically came in line with what the trade was kind of looking for, just a slight reduction in the yield in the corn and on the soybean side of things. Fact of the matter is that, we still have what most people consider a burdensome supply right now. So that is going to, unless we get any real major changes, if they take a lot of money off of or not a lot of money, if they take a lot off the yield in the corn or the soybeans in one of these reports as we move towards the end of the year, that is going to kind of keep a thumb or keep a lid on any rally or, any momentum that we get moving to the upside, because fact of the matter is we have plenty of our crops around right now, and we need to figure out a way to reduce that, and whether that's through export sales like Kyle was kind of talking about a little bit, or we find some buying interest, that's going to be what we need moving forward.
What about for you, Kyle?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Today, coming in, it was a Friday, we did have the report. Really didn't see anything there that really, it was just another day. And when I look at the spreads, the way the spreads looked here, yes, we sold off, looked like there was non-commercial selling here towards the end of the session, but there was really no commercial selling. It looked, in fact, to me, at times when we made our lows in beans today, the spreads got a little bit greener. So it looked to me like we're doing some commercial business and possibly some export sales being made out there. And we're sitting here, obviously looking at the carry. We're looking at beans. We've got about 51% carry between Jan to March right now. November is going to be in delivery here pretty soon. So there's going to be a lot of rolling there, getting out of those November contracts and moving out there to those deferred issues. So I'm starting to look a little bit further out. That May, July bean spread, that doesn't have a lot of carry in it right now. It's got some carry. It's sitting there at about 41%, so it's at a neutral level. That's still telling me that there's some issues down there in South America. Corn, same type of situation. That May, July's got about 25% carry. That's bullish. I mean, we're really obviously looking at weather in South America right now with that second crop safrinha. You know, if we're going to get these beans out, we're going to be able to get corn put in after that. Up front here, we've got plenty of supply here in corn. Obviously, looking at that D-Smarts corn spread sitting at about 53.5 to 54% carry right now. That's neutral to leaning a little bit more towards the bearish side of things. So there's still a lot of corn to come to town, and there's still quite a few beans come to town out west here anyway.
And I know that there's been such a discussion about how fast this harvest has been and lack of storage for many of these crops. What are you guys hearing? First, Kyle, I'll ask you, what are you hearing from your neck of the woods on storage?
So far, storage is fine, and everybody gets hyped up. Oh my, they're piling on the ground. They're piling on the ground. We've been piling on the ground for decades because it's the cheapest storage there is. They pile it on the ground, then they turn around and they ship it out right away. And I mean, that's just something that's evolved over time, is learning how to pile grain on the ground and learning how to get the blend correct when you pick it back up. So that's what it is. We pile corn and beans on the ground every year because it's cheap storage, and they can turn around and get it picked back up when they get unit trains or they get bases pushed. The ethanol plant will fill their contracts everywhere else. So there is that issue out there. I mean, it's a logistic issue. Into the gut slot of harvest that, yeah, we're probably going to have to pile some grain on the ground, but we always do that. So I'm not too worried about it. We always get it picked up.
What about you, David, over in the area of Iowa, and as those crops come in, what are your thoughts and concerns? Because I know some are worried about the amount of beans that are on the ground at this point.
Yeah, I think Kyle made a great point. Every year is just a little bit different, but it always seems like some of the crop has to go on the ground, and we've been doing that for a really long time, or a lot of these elevators have been doing it for a very long time, I should say. So, getting it picked up, and, it seems like they get more and more efficient as time moves on. I ultimately don't think it'll be a major issue. To your dryness comment, I think that, we've had really good weather to get the crop out, but, I think that there are some areas where, this really good weather, this really kind of unseasonably warm type of year right now, and obviously really dry, especially around here, dried the crop down really fast. And there's a lot of people that are, I'm talking to people that are combining corn right now, sub 10% or, 11%. And it's the first stuff they planted. They planted it, early, and it's a late day maturity. So, just really surprising, that these crops are at the levels that they're at. But and I think that has taken some yield off in some areas. But we're going to have to wait and see as this harvest progresses a little further over these next couple of weeks. How big are those pockets?
What do you think, David, is the export potential out there for our crops? As we know, South America continues to deal with some dryness, and as Kyle mentioned, concerns about the safrinha corn crop down the road.
Well, I think, we will get to, we are going to get back to a price level where, our exports are going to be attractive. And, I know that there is I don't exactly know all the details about it, but there is a meeting going on in China, I believe, tomorrow. And, they're going to kind of talk about what they are going to look at doing moving forward. So perhaps they're going to be a little more involved in the market. But we have seen a pretty good size uptick in the sales overall, I would say. It seems like we're getting some sales of corn or some sales of beans nearly every day, which I think is a really good sign overall. Like we've talked about before, Susan, perhaps the biggest troubles that we're going to have is getting the product out of the country, whether that be, the levels on the Mississippi or, port strikes, whatever. Obviously we got that first port strike kind of cleaned up, but, who's to say that we don't go back on strike? And I think there's potential logistic issues down the road that perhaps could cause more of a problem than the sales themselves.
Kyle, for you, look at the switching gears and take a look at this cattle market. What was your thoughts? Were you happy with at least the steady numbers we saw in the cash this week?
It kind of came into the week thinking the steady was going to be the case here. I know a lot of folks up here in the north were tickled to death to get 187 again, and they were ready to move some cattle because some of these cattle are getting big. Now in the Southern Plains, I did hear some 187, maybe some cases of 188. Haven't been able to confirm that just yet in Kansas and Texas. So that's kind of what got the board excited yesterday. And we've seen it's been quite the moves here the last few sessions here in live cattle. Yesterday we had a key reversal higher. Wednesday we had a key reversal lower, and today we went lower again after making a new high. So wasn't quite a key reversal, wasn't an outside session lower, but as we sit here, this cattle complex is still in way overbought territory on the charts, and we can stay like that for long periods of time. However, with the volatility as cheap as it is in options, if a person wants to play their bias one way or the other in this cattle complex, live cattle or feeder cattle, you can go to the options, and you can at least sleep at night because you know what you stand to lose here. I'm not a fan of selling options at these levels because the volatility is so cheap in them. There's not a lot of volatility, not a lot of premium out there to sell. So if a person wants to play a bias, I'd be looking at the options.
All right. What about for you, David, as you look at this cattle complex?
Yeah, dang it, Kyle, you took all my talking points. But I completely agree, and I've kind of been saying that for a couple weeks now, that I think that we are in store for a little bit of a correction here in the cattle market, because we are overbought. But I think that potentially we got a little excited yesterday because of the Southern trade, and they're and talking with some people, maybe the numbers are a little tighter in the South. And I know that there were some cattle that were bought up here in the North that went to the South. So maybe they are struggling a little bit to fill out the kills down there. But how tight they are is still a question that is still remains to be seen overall. But we can stay overbought for a really long time, just like we can stay oversold for a really long time. And I think the biggest thing that's been driving this, especially this week, is the funds have grabbed the attention of the livestock market, or gotten an appetite for the livestock. And you can talk fundamentals as long as the day is. You can talk cash, you can talk whatever. But if the funds want to be buyers, then they'll push it, and they can hold it at those levels regardless of what the fundamentals are saying.
Well, gentlemen, we have completely run out of time. I appreciate both of you joining us this week. A quick reminder, commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. And that's been this week's Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup.